Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Cabinet meeting. I am Councillor Andrew Husband, Leader of Durham County Council and Chair of this meeting. This meeting is being broadcast live through our YouTube channel. Before we commence with today's formal business, I'd like to cover some of the housekeeping issues for us all to follow. Please switch off or make silent your mobile phones and all other devices. Keep microphones switched off at all times unless invited to speak by myself as the Chair. When invited to speak, please switch on the microphone nearest to you and introduce yourself. And we'll move to item 1. Apologies for absence. I believe there are no apologies for today's meeting. Item 2, public questions, and no public questions have been received. Item 3, can I have a mover and seconder to the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of November 2025?
Chair, I'll move the minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Lyons.
Chair, I'll second the minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Can we agree that the minutes are a correct record? Agreed. Item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest in relation to any items on the agenda? Thank you. Item 5, poverty strategy 2026 to 2030. Can I invite Paul Darby, Corporate Director of Resources, to present the report?
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. The current poverty strategy was adopted by Cabinet in November 2022 and covers the period 2022 to 2026. Progress updates on delivery of this strategy were subsequently presented to Cabinet in February 2024 and again in April 2025. This report provides a further update on activity and progress against the current strategy and action plan, but also sets out details of a review that has been undertaken and proposes to consult on a revised strategy covering the period 2026 to 2030. The current strategy has 4 core objectives, which are to target support using robust data, reduce financial pressures on low-income households, build resilience at an individual, household and community level, and remove barriers to access services and entitlement. Paragraphs 40 to 53 of the report set out an overview of the current position, covering the latest national deprivation ranking for County Durham, the number of residents living in absolute poverty after housing costs, and the number of residents in fuel poverty, plus the number of households on universal credit and how many children suffer from child poverty, and some data on educational outcomes, housing data, employment and funding challenges, all of which makes some stark reading and exemplify the challenges we face here in County Durham. Paragraphs 54 to 75 sets out an overview of initiatives implemented in support of the 4 priority objectives of the current strategy. From paragraph 76 onwards, the report sets out details of the review of the strategy and the proposals in terms of the consultation that will be undertaken to inform the next iteration of this important strategy. The review has been informed by a series of Poverty Action Steering Group workshops and engagement with key stakeholders, which Councillor Lyons has also been involved in. It is proposed that the next strategy will seek to move away from a focus on reactive crisis support to more proactive, longer-term strategies to provide a pathway out of poverty, building resilience and equipping individuals and communities to support themselves. Ultimately, the poverty strategy relies on the inclusive economic strategy and wider regional and national interventions to lead to more and better jobs as a route out of poverty. It is proposed that the new updated strategy will focus on financially resilient communities and will have a new name and strapline focused on minimising deprivation and maximising opportunities. From paragraph 103 to 124 of the report covers the proposed new ambitions to focus the initiatives and actions to be taken forward over the next few years, centred around 5 key pillars, the 5 Ps, those being prevention, protection, pathways, participation and partnerships. We will need to consult on these proposals and update the strategy, and the consultation approach is set out at paragraphs 129 to 134. The consultation will run from January 26 to March 26, and the outcomes and the proposed new strategy will come back to Cabinet in May or June of this year. There is an inequality impact assessment attached to Appendix 3 to the report, which is summarised in the body of the report also, and which demonstrates that the most affected people are those on low incomes, those on fixed incomes, including pensioners, people with disabilities or long-term health conditions, unemployed people and those living in rural areas. Chair, the recommendations are set out at paragraph 26. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Can I invite Councillor Lyons, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Communities and Civic Resilience, to move the report?
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. Can I thank Paul and his team for preparing this report? The current poverty strategy has served us well, covering the period from 2022 to 2026. It was developed during a time of supporting residents and businesses with the fallout from the pandemic. Since then, we have seen inflationary pressures and a suite of welfare benefit system changes, which have compounded the daily pressures felt by our residents, where we have seen an increase in those who are in work but struggling with the cost of living. Whilst maintaining a safety net for residents will always remain a key priority, the new strategy needs to focus more on prevention and long-term resilience, away from crisis support. We need to combine urgent interventions such as emergency financial assistance, food and fuel support, and access to social tariffs with longer-term initiatives that promote sustainable change, empowering residents, building skills and supporting pathways out of poverty. We need to work with our communities to adapt the right support to the right people at the right time. The voice of our residents and partners in shaping this approach is vital, and the report outlines the plan for public consultation to gather feedback, which will take place in early 2026 and will sit alongside the review work that has already taken place to help shape the new strategy. The consultation will gather feedback on proposals including a change to the name of the strategy to the Financially Resilient Community Strategy. Much of the feedback and benchmarking already taken place has highlighted the word poverty in itself can be limiting in its scope and a barrier to residents' access and support. The new strategy will provide not only crisis support but also the opportunity to prevent the crisis in the first place. The public consultation will focus on resident and partner feedback and on the suggested new name, updated vision and the work that will underpin the pillars outlined in the report. The new strategy will sit alongside the delivery of the new Crisis Resilience Fund, the changes to our working age local council tax reduction scheme, wider welfare support and the council plan, and comes at the perfect time at the start of these changes to allow alignment across multiple avenues. With that, Chair, I move the recommendations as out in paragraph 26.
Thank you, Councillor Lyons. Can I invite Councillor Brown, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Adult and Health Services, to second the report?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'd also like to add my thanks to the authors of the report presented today. But I also think it should be noted and recorded that the Cabinet thank Councillor Lyons for her passion and commitment in leading this work. The report explains how we are developing our approach to tackling poverty in County Durham. It builds on what we've learned in recent years and recognises the ongoing challenges many residents face. It also stresses the need to not only help people in immediate need, but to give them the skills, advice and opportunities to achieve long-term financial security. The final strategy will be shaped by the views of our residents and partners, with a public consultation planned to make sure it meets real needs. This strategy will support our wider council plans and aims to create real opportunities for everyone in our communities to thrive. I support the report, second the recommendations in paragraph 26, and look forward to hearing feedback from our residents and partners in the new year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Are there any other Cabinet members wishing to speak? And does Cabinet agree the recommendations? Thank you. On to item 6. Can I invite Paul Darby, Corporate Director Resources, to present the report?
Thank you, Chair. This Q2 performance report provides an update on progress against the Council's key performance indicators based on the priorities and objectives set out in the Council plan. Those priorities were subject to extensive consultation in the summer and were agreed by Cabinet and Council in October as part of the development of the new Council plan post the elections in May. In line with good practice, our continuously evolving performance management framework continues to be set in the context of best value principles and our medium-term financial planning, council tax and budget setting arrangements. The scope of this report is intended to meet a range of monitoring requirements for various audiences. This includes members, senior managers, employees, regulatory bodies and our residents. The information contained in this report is extensive, and the report provides an ongoing mechanism for scrutinising the performance of our services and supporting transparency. As usual, progress is described through a range of key performance indicators, contextualised with benchmarking information where it is available, and information from service management teams. The detailed report is attached to Appendix 2 with some summarised information set out in the covering report. There are a range of service-level dashboards and support and narrative provided, structured around the Council's ambitions and strategic planning objectives, showing a clear golden thread between the priorities of this Council and the performance of its operational services. Some highlights in the executive summary include the fact that we've exceeded our target for supporting local businesses. Over the last 12 months, we've supported over 1,300 businesses, securing £5.6 million of investment for companies and created or safeguarded over 2,000 jobs. We continue to provide a wide range of services to support people with social care needs, and we're expanding our re-enablement offer to help people retain independence for longer. Social care users report higher levels of satisfaction and better quality of life than national averages here in Durham. Benefit processing times continue to be better than target despite high demand, and we're receiving fewer complaints following some customer-facing improvements we have implemented over the last 6 months. As members will see, there is strong performance across the Council services in the main, which was recognised in the peer review that was undertaken in October, and where performance falls below our expectations, we have improvement plans in place. For example, in children's social care, our children's social care demand remains a complex challenge. Statutory demand for children's social care remains high, with an average of 500 children referred each month in Q2. However, improved practice across statutory children's social care has led to a consistently low re-referral rate, and despite higher demand, performance remains strong in key areas such as assessment timeliness. At the end of Q2, the number of children in our care has increased to 1,265, following on 12 months of relative stability. Higher cost placements for children in our care have put further pressure on service budgets, and this is part of a longer-term and regional and national trend. More children in care have increased complex needs and support needs, driving up the average cost per placement as a result of market capacity challenges to meet growing needs across the sector. This area remains challenging and a strategic priority for the Cabinet, who recently, through Council, agreed the new sufficiency statement, and which is in line with the declared care emergency. The performance data presented in this report will be reported to the thematic overview and scrutiny committees in the new year, where there will be a chance for more discussion on the in-depth discussion on the Council's performance. The recommendations are set out in paragraph 8, which are for Cabinet to note the contents of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul, for presenting the report in Steve Evans' absence. Since the Q1 report was considered in September, we've agreed our new Council plan, which gives us a new strategic framework for the next 5 years to help us deliver the best possible value for money services for the people of County Durham. Our ongoing financial challenges mean that it is vital we continue to focus on the essentials and meet head-on the challenges we continue to face from growing demands and national policy decisions. Our new plan reflects our political priorities for the Council and ensures that the organisation has a clear focus on things that matter most to local residents and businesses, on the care emergency and on building our local economy, attracting and retaining businesses, and not on the pursuit of net zero targets. It is pleasing to note the good performance in this report across the majority of our services, including the support for local business growth, delivering efficient and effective services for housing benefit and council tax reduction administration support. I also note the challenges inherent in the report, including ongoing high demand in children's social care and the underlying complexity of this demand, which is driving higher costs, reinforcing the need for our care emergency declaration last July and the wider refocusing our priorities. Planning applications completed within deadline improves this quarter actually, and there's more to do though, and to get a consistently high standard that local businesses and residents expect. And I also note that staff sickness levels have been increasing since 2023, but overall staff turnover is actually lower than it was in 2022, despite some of the statements made by opposition members, ironically, who are not here today. Maybe they're off sick. Anyway, there are a range of other areas to note, which are summarised in the executive summary of the main performance report in Appendix 2. Greater detail is contained throughout the report within the respective chapters and dashboards that I'm sure our corporate overview and scrutiny committees will get their teeth into. With that, I propose that Cabinet note the report. Are there any other Cabinet members wishing to speak? Can I ask Cabinet to note the report? Thank you. Item 7, 2025-26 Quarter 2 forecast outturn for the revenue budget, capital budgets, collection fund and treasury management. Can I invite Paul Darby, Corporate Director of Resources, to present the report?
Thank you, Chair. This is the second budgetary control report the Cabinet received on the 25-26 budget position. The figures in this report are updated forecasts to the year end based on the position to 30th of September, or to quarter 2 as we accountants like to refer to it as. The quarter 1 position was presented to Cabinet in September and included forecasts to the year end based on the position to the 30th of June. This report covers our updated projected general fund outturn position, the updated forecast for maintained schools and the updated high needs DSG position, the updated forecast for our council tax and business rates collection funds, and the updated position in terms of the capital programme, including the treasury management and prudential indicator performance, plus an overview of progress with delivering our MTFP savings that were factored into the 25-26 budget. As is usual, the report includes details of the forecast position of all of our reserves and balances at the year end, with Appendix 4 setting out details of our earmarked reserves, showing the opening position at the 1st of April, movements in the year and forecast closing position at the 31st of March 26. The report is very detailed, but in summary I would note the general fund underspend to the year end is now forecast to be £4.758 million, which is £3.307 million less than what was forecast at quarter 1, and largely as a result of the deterioration in the children looked after placements budget, which we've also had to factor into the updated MTFP forecast we considered at Cabinet on the 19th of November. This will mean that the general reserve will be £35.916 million at year end, or 5.76% of our net budget requirement, but within the policy agreed by Council. Earmarked reserves are forecast to reduce by £13.4 million to year end, slightly higher than the reduction that was forecast at quarter 1, when the reduction was forecast to be £11.3 million. The maintained schools balances, covering 127 of our schools, are set to reduce by £7.749 million in year, broadly in line with the initial budget set by those governing bodies, but representing an improvement on the quarter 1 position. The schools with licence deficits that were agreed in July are forecast to remain within their licence deficit position in year. The high needs DSG position has, however, worsened by £2.2 million to a forecast year-end overspend of £16.729 million, meaning that the cumulative deficit is now forecast to be £39.710 million to year-end. Servicing this deficit is costing the council taxpayer around £1.7 million in lost interest in the current year. The updated capital programme shows that the forecast capital spending this year is £274.446 million, with just under £616 million now forecast over the current MTFP planning period, and the report sets out a series of proposed amendments to the capital programme to reflect reprofiling and the receipt of new capital grants and contributions in the quarter. Both collection funds are forecast to be in surplus to the year end. The Council Tax Collection Fund is showing a £391,000 surplus, and the Business Rates Collection Fund is showing a £5.538 million surplus. The Council's share of the Council Tax surplus is £329,000, which is consistent with the declared surplus in the tax-based report on the 19th of November, and our share of the business rate surplus is £2.714 million. Taken together, this totals just over £3 million accruing to the Council. Of the £18.036 million of savings factored into the 25-26 budget, £17.36 million, or 96.2%, had been delivered or is expected to be delivered in year based on the position to the 30th of September. Paragraphs 28 to 74 provide details of the service group and under and overspending. The CYPS forecasts are £7.746 million worse than the position at quarter 1, largely a result of the children looked after placements budget position. This deterioration has, however, been largely offset by improved positions for all other services. As members will see, we are also reporting a forecast £500,000 improvement in interest earned on our surplus funds to the year end. The earmarked reserves position is summarised at paragraph 88, and as members will see, the closing position for all earmarked reserves is forecast to be just over 155 million, with 69.3 million of this being corporate reserves, 18.6 million being grant and sums held on behalf of third parties, and 69.4 million being sums held by services for specific reasons. The DSG position is covered in some detail at paragraphs 94 to 113, and paragraphs 114 to 130 cover the capital programme. Paragraphs 121 to 126 details the proposed additions, deletions and reprofiling of projects, which result in a £29.2 million reduction in planned capital expenditure this year, largely down to reprofiling into later years. Paragraph 128 shows the overall breakdown of the capital programme, and paragraph 130 shows how that capital programme will be financed. Performance against the various Treasury management and prudential indicators is set out at paragraphs 132 to 145, which demonstrate that we fully comply with the Treasury management strategy and policies agreed by Council in February. These indicators are consistent with the update report I presented to Council last week. The collection fund performance is detailed at paragraphs 148 to 164, with the overall position summarised for the Council at paragraph 165. There is a table at paragraph 168 which details the £676,000 of MTFP savings that were factored into the current year's budget that are forecast to not be delivered in year and are resulting in overspends within the services, and all services are working on mitigation as appropriate. The recommendations are set out at paragraph 22, and this report will be considered by the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee in the new year, with detailed reports also being presented to the thematic scrutiny committees in the new year also. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Can I also add my thanks to Councillor Grimes, to Paul and his team? Apologies. Can I invite Councillor Grimes first? Deputy Leader of the Council, to move the report.
You can indeed. I am delighted to move this report. Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to all of our officers and budget managers for their continued tight grip on our finances. The updated position shows that we're forecasting a net £4.8 million underspend to year end, lower than what was anticipated at Q1 and largely from managed underspends across all services except for children and young people's services, where there have been sustained and increased cost pressures from underspending within corporate budgets, helped by a delay in borrowing. Sensible housekeeping, really, if you ask me, and representative of a clear focus on reducing costs wherever we can. If we exclude children and young people's services, our forecast underspend would have increased this quarter by around 4.4 million. However, we cannot, of course, exclude that position, which has deteriorated by 7.746 million. The enduring pressures in children and young people's relate to children looked after placement costs. That is despite the rebalancing of £4 million between adult health and children's commissioning budgets in Q1 to reflect need. These financial challenges continue to cast a significant shadow over our 26 to 27 budget and beyond, and we continue to challenge these costs line by line. In terms of what this means for our reserves position, our general reserve is now forecast to be 35.9 million at year end, 5.76% of the net budget requirement and within policy. Earmarked reserves are now forecast to reduce by 13.4 million this year to 155.3 million, of which 18.4 million is external grants and sums held on behalf of others. For a £1.7 billion gross spend organisation, we are the 7th largest unitary in the country. Those levels of reserves are proportionate to our scale and our size. In terms of our high needs dedicated schools grant, forecast overspending in this area has increased to 16.7 million this year, 2.2 million higher than what was forecast at Q1, resulting in a cumulative retained deficit of 39.7 million by year end, and all because the government has designed a system that it simply refuses to fund properly or take seriously, meaning that our taxpayers will lose around 1.7 million in interest just this year, just to cash flow that deficit. That's money that's not going into services here because Whitehall won't get a grip of the problem that it created. It means we have to make difficult decisions. We were bitterly disappointed that the budget once again failed to provide a solution to that particular can and instead chose to kick it down the road. I tell you, Newcastle United has had its own problems at the minute, but I'm suggesting that we get Rachel Reeves in because she's one hell of a striker. Savings delivery by the 30th of September were on course to deliver 96.2% of the 18 million target. 676,000 looks at risk and is being mitigated, an improvement on the Q1 position when 974,000 was at risk. On capital, having reviewed the capital commitments we inherited during Q1, where we deleted 21.3 million of lower priority schemes that were not yet contractually committed to, reducing the revenue pressure by around £720,000 and avoiding unnecessary debt. We continue to keep a tight grip on the capital programme, with this report setting out some necessary reprofiling and adjustments to reflect new grant funding secured and to reflect investment in our transformation programme through the additional investment in the Oracle Fusion project. On schools, our maintained schools planned showed a withdrawal of 7.7 million from balances when they set their budgets. Q1 suggested this would be 8.1 million, but at Q2 this is reduced back to 7.7 million, leaving 19.4 million across our maintained schools, with further mitigation and restructures underway. So I expect the outturn position will improve again at Q3 and beyond. Now, I visited the Croft School in my ward not too long ago, and the situation in many of our schools is dire indeed. So my heart goes out to them at Christmas, it really does. In summary, we continue to prioritise maintaining a strong grip on the public purse, tackle pressures early, and are refusing to pretend that national cost drivers are local choices. We're clear with the public in this party. And with that, Chair, I move the report and recommendations at paragraph 22.
Thank you, Councillor Grimes. To be fair to Rachel Reeves, she probably does have football manager on her CV there somewhere. I'll second the report. So yes, I'll continue to thank the likes of Councillor Grimes, Paul and his team for the detailed report, and to all budget managers across the council for their continued effective management of the budgets. Managing the budget in an organisation of this scale and complexity of the council and the environment in which we work, particularly when there are significant demand and volatility in our cost base, it's challenging. Unavoidable pay and price inflation, matters wholly outside of our control, together with the huge cost increases in statutory social care, it continues to place a huge strain on the council's finances. Something that is quite pleasing. I mean, all services across Durham County Council are performing well, responding well to our challenge to officers in strict budget management, and it's really, really reassuring and encouraging the direction of travel we're on. It is also pleasing to see that just over 96% of the 18 million of budget savings that were factored into the 2025-2026 budget have been delivered and are on track to be delivered at 30th of September. At 5.76% of our net budget requirement, the General Reserves is forecast to be in line with the target of maintaining this at between 5 and 7.5% of the net budget requirement, which is what is set out in our reserves policy. Having undertaken a root and branch review in Q1, this report sets out details of necessary amendments to the capital programme sequencing, with a net 29.2 million reduction in planned expenditure this year. With that, I am happy to second the recommendations as set out in the report at paragraph 22, as outlined in the report, including the amendments to the capital programme. Thank you. Are there any other Cabinet members wishing to speak? And does Cabinet agree the recommendations? Thank you. Before we move on, really, it's a good opportunity to give a little tribute to John Pearce, who's our last full Cabinet, someone who's an expert in his field and big shoes to fill. Hopefully our paths will cross again. Over to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to all of the members of corporate leadership team in the room and everyone that works under their respective portfolios for being incredible to work with since May of this year. Your hard work and effort hasn't gone unnoticed, and we're incredibly grateful that we did come in with such a fantastic team of people who I've no doubt could be making vast sums in the private sector, but choose instead to serve this county, and we're so incredibly grateful to you for doing so. I'm hopeful that later today, instead of the Grinch that stole Christmas, our wonderful and greatly maligned finance officer will be able to instead be like Tiny Tim, looking over at the gifts of Christmas bestowed upon the table by Rachel Reeves. The fair funding formula is, of course, a Whitehall wheeze that we have no control over, but I'm really hopeful that actually County Durham, with its deprived areas and low council tax base, manages to get a gift this Christmas. That's what we're all begging for in this county. But to all the staff out there, thank you so very much for working with this year. It's been a year of change and I think renewed vigour. And again, Merry Christmas to all of you and thank you.
I think that's a here. Item 8, exclusion of the public. Cabinet has asked to move a resolution to exclude the press and public. Can I have a mover?
Chair, move to exclude press and public.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. And seconder?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Allison. Does Cabinet agree the resolution? That concludes the public business for this part of the meeting. I would like to thank everyone for taking part and to those members of the public and media who have watched this meeting.